this is, if anything, this game is more me than Shay was in the previous one.
100%.
I mean, yeah,
100%.
taking place in the Middle East.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to call you Bassam all the time as well too.
I'm also, I don't have my finger here, so that's also why.
I used to call him Baghdad Baddie as well. That was
call me
Baghdaddy.
Baghdaddy, but I like Baghdad Baddie because you're a baddie in Baghdad.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
I don't want to call you a daddy though. Baghdad Daddy is a little, or Zaddy.
I don't know. They don't really. Yeah, I don't know. We'll stop this conversation.
Hello and welcome to the movie podcast review of Assassin's Creed Mirage. My name is Daniel. I'm one of your hosts today, and joining alongside me are my fellow brothers of the Assassins. It's Anthony.
Hello.
And it's Shabazz.
Hello.
Oh, okay. Again, I wasn't sure what to expect when you were going to say that. I thought you were going to do like a hidden one's voice, like hello, and then stab me in the throat.
No. This one, I wanted to go British because I thought it was only right.
Dude, you're like the loudest assassin.
I'm the loudest assassin?
Yeah, man. Like with that accent, like everyone's gonna know you are not.
Do you think I'm talking to people when I'm assassinating them? Like, hello there, governor, and then like stabbing them?
I'm walking in the ceiling.
I feel like that's what you would do. 100%. You would be walking with your top hat on. You wouldn't even wear the cloak. You just wear top hat, monocle with the little sticky stick. The
stick icky. That's so good. No, that's more Assassin's Creed Syndicate. So that's the one that took place in London. We're in Baghdad.
Oh yeah,
for Assassin's
hometown.
Creed Mirage today. You know what? This is did you say hometown?
I did. Yeah.
This is a game review. Hold on. Wait a second. We are reviewing a game here on the Movie Podcast. I want to say the last time we did a game review, was it for God of War?
No, it was we did Fallen Order.
My gosh, Fallen Order was this year.
That was the Kingdom, right?
And we did Tears of the Kingdom. We did many game reviews.
Listen, guys, it's been a long time since we've done a game review, and it's also been a very long year. But I also love doing game reviews with you guys because we all bring such a different perspective and history to it, and I think there's something so cool about talking about video games because we love talking about them from the cinematic perspective. I always think, I know this is a very deep cut for those of you listening to the Movie Podcast, but when we interviewed Billy McClellan of Nobody, so this is a film that we did an interview for years ago at this point. Mm-hmm. I always remember Anthony and I talked to him and we spoke so long about The Last of Us. And I remember Anthony talking about how he always sees video games as like the evolutionary successor to what movies could be, where the movies, like especially the video games that we have now, are so cinematic and you get to go in and you get to tell your own stories. And the Assassin's Creed franchise has been one that has really, I think, led the charge, especially early on in, going back to 2007 with the first game, that we are telling these giant stories. We're having these giant cinematic events, these blockbuster games, but we're also having some incredible gameplay and characters and moments to go along with that. So I'm so excited to dive into all of our experiences with Assassin's Creed, what our thoughts are on Mirage. Again, we are going to be staying spoiler-free here because this is the Movie Podcast. You can catch brand new episodes all throughout the week with interviews, reviews, and so much more on all the latest movies and series. Anthony, you got something to say before
This is just off topic because you brought up Billy, and I remember he sent you a mask.
And
you were like, "Oh yeah, Billy, send me the Spider-Man mask." But it was lobsters, but you didn't realize it was inside out. So
dude,
why did he send me a lobster mask? But it was actually the lobsters in the inside, but Spider-Man was supposed to be on the outside. It's just he just had to flip it through. Sorry, that was just a memory that was unlocked.
No, I love that because I'll never forget getting that package in the mail and being so confused to being like, why is there a mask with lobsters? Like, who sent me this? I had no recollection of what this is, and then I turned it inside out. I'm like, oh, it's Spider-Man on it. So I'm like, that makes a lot more sense. But also funny, there is a Ubisoft connection with Billy. Billy also did a lot of voices for Watch Dogs. So it's just there's the Ubisoft connection today. And I do want to say thank you to our friends at Ubisoft for providing us with codes to Assassin's Creed Mirage. The game releases on October 5th on Xbox Xbox Series X, Xbox One, PS5, and PS4. So it's going to be on all of the family of systems. You'll be able to experience it and play Assassin's Creed because it's been a few years. The last time we played an Assassin's Creed game was Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which came out all the way back in the launch year of these consoles, which is in 2020, which feels like 10 years ago at this point. But I do want to say, before we get into everything with Assassin's Creed, make sure you follow us on all social media platforms at The Movie Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Letterboxd. Make sure you join our Discord. We'll probably open up a Discord channel for this too. So if you are planning on playing Assassin's Creed Mirage, if you are a fan of the Assassin's Creed series, maybe you're a fan of the Assassin's Creed movie, we don't know. Let us know. We'd love to hear from you because I don't think we've, met anybody who actually really liked it. But maybe we'll find you in our Discord. So make sure you join us there. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please like, subscribe, leave a comment below. Consider checking us out on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. We're there. And we'll have some ads on the show. So, we're still getting used to where our ad placements are going to be. If you had feedback for us, let us know. Right into the show, hello@TheMoviePodcast.ca, or leave a comment below and just let us know, like, hey, ad comes in at a weird time. We're still finessing everything. So we're figuring that out. But yes, today is all about Assassin's Creed Mirage. This is really the return to form, or kind of back to basics with Assassin's Creed, where we've been getting these giant RPG experiences, starting with Assassin's Creed Origins, and then the Odyssey into Valhalla. We had these, giant, huge, sprawling open worlds with a lot of crafting, a lot of collecting items, a lot of doing a lot more RPG elements, and they haven't really felt as, tied to the Assassin's worlds as they did in the earlier trilogy, especially in, the first Assassin's Creed, the Ezio trilogy, 3, and, Black Flag, really was, I think, that springboard into telling these bigger stories. But Assassin's Creed Mirage, I'm really excited to talk about it. Shay, I'd love for you to start us off. Give us your history with Assassin's Creed, where you kind of started with the series, and then we'll talk a little bit more about Mirage, and we'll open it up to everybody.
For me, the Assassin's Creed franchise really started with the second game. The Ezio trilogy was really my bag, and I completely loved it. I think it was just so beloved by everybody, because I remember the first game, which I haven't played all the way. I've played bits and pieces of it. It wasn't like there was things that people really liked about it, but everyone was kind of like, I don't know, like, I'm not sure if I'm in love with it yet. And then when 2 came out, they really seemed to fix it. It was also still that era of Assassin's Creed where we had the dual, the modern day take, and then we also still had the Assassin's Creed era. So hate or love it, that was kind of how the series went. I didn't play 3. I played Black Flag, and then, I think Unity was right after.
Yeah, so we had Black Flag, and then the following year, because Black Flag came out on the new generation at that time in 2013, and then in 2014 we had Unity and we had Rogue,
yes,
which came out. So Rogue was for
previous
the
gen
last
consoles,
and then Unity was for the PS4 and for the Xbox.
And the assassin for Rogue was named Shay. I remember that very well. It was everyone kept calling me an assassin, and I kind of feel like, and this is, if anything, this game is more me than Shay was in the previous one.
100%.
I mean, taking place in the Middle East.
Yeah.
I used to call you Bossum all the time as well too.
I used to call him.
I don't have my finger here, so that's also why.
I used to call him Baghdad Baddie as well. That was my
nickname. Baghdaddy?
The Baghdad, but I like Baghdad Baddie because you're a baddie in Baghdad.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
I don't want to call you a daddy though. Baghdad Daddy is a little, or Zaddy.
I don't know. They don't really. Yeah, I don't know. Well, we'll stop this conversation. And then when we got to Origins, which I tried to play a little bit of, couldn't get into, and then Odyssey came out, which I really loved. I really loved Odyssey. I put, I think, 800 hours into it, and I still didn't come close to finishing the game.
Oh, you didn't even get the title sequence yet?
I don't think so. And I think that's kind of where I started to feel very discouraged by the franchise, because I put in, I think, like 50 plus hours into Odyssey, and I still wasn't even close to being done. And I was like, how? And it really just turned me off from the franchise. I played a little bit of Valhalla when it came out, and I still couldn't get into it because, again, way too big, way too much happening in it, especially in a time when there are so many games coming out. You kind of have to be aware that, people want to dedicate their time to different video games. You can't put me in this world. This isn't like Baldur's Gate 3 or games where they're just real-time strategy where you're constantly playing for hours and hours and hours, and that's like you can go back to it. Assassin's Creed, when you take time apart from it and you go back into it, that learning curve sometimes is a bit too much to kind of just dive right back in. There's too many controls. It's kind of how I feel even about games like Ghost of Tsushima, which I absolutely loved, but when I go back to it, I'm like, I got to retrain my mind. Even Red Dead,
and also the story, right? Like,
and the story.
There's so much story that's happening, especially when you look at games like that, the previous trilogy of Assassin's Creed games with Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla, where there is so much story happening. There was a lot of expansions. There was such a deep combat and weapon system and gear system in those games. So you were constantly trying to, if you took time away from it, kind of wrap your head and go back into it and figure out, okay, what weapons do I need? What levels do I need to worry about and power up and all that stuff?
There's too much. The RPG elements are definitely great for the people who really, really love them. But for me personally, I was really missing just the simplicity of what made Assassin's Creed great. I just wanted to go around, do a leapfrog jump on somebody and just stab him right in the neck or something, and make it really simple. Go down a list of just main baddies or Baghdaddies in this case, and just go through them and just take them out like in a very simple narrative. So when we heard about the announcement of Assassin's Creed Mirage, was it last E3 or the E3 before that? Was it last E3? Not the one that happened this year.
I think we've heard about it for a while.
Yes, we've heard about it for a while.
The nature of the games industry.
Yes, the official reveal happened. I was really interested. I was like, okay, you're telling me we're not going back to form. You're going under a 20-hour game. Let's see what they can do. And I'm happy to report this game is awesome. This is exactly what I wanted. I was so excited for this game coming out. I'm so glad it actually lived up to what it needed to do. Are there issues with the game? Absolutely. I feel like there are some isms that Assassin's Creed games have that they still haven't been able to nail down, and this game still has them. Technical wise, it's really hard for me to talk about some of the bugs and issues in this game, only because we are playing this game, I think right now, before one of the day one patches as well. So there are some of those issues that occur, but I can kind of let them slide because they never luckily broke the game for me, or they never really put me in a position with the game where I was like, oh, well, I got to restart this. I just usually had to kind of walk away for a bit, come back, and then guess what? It would kind of move me forward, which I thought was pretty good for a game that has so much happening in it. The map is a really, really good size. You can go from point A to point B in a great, respectable amount of time. The tools, the weapons, the story, the character of Basim, I found him really, really interesting, very complex, very depthful. And there's a lot within this world. It also does help that the representation in this game is fantastic. I played a couple hours of this game with the Arabic setting on because they said that, hey, that they've introduced that. And it added this layer that I thought was so deep and so fulfilling. I was like, wow, this seems really, really cool. It feels very like I'm playing this time and I'm really invested in it. Then I went obviously back because at a certain point I was like, I need to really know what's happening and start trying to guess what, even though I was reading the subtitles, I'm like, I need to like really hear it. So going back to the game in English as well, really fun, really great. I'm really glad that Assassin's Creed is back to the way that it needed to be to make it a very digestible game. I know that they are going to eventually go back to the massive world games as well, but if every couple of years we get one of these, like, I'm in. I know what I'm going to get myself into. Maybe I'll skip out on the ones, or I'll play them, whatever, the ones that are really big. But as of right now, this is where I want to be in this kind of a world. Assassin's Creed Mirage is fresh. It's a great take on that world that we're so used to and loving, but it's a welcome back that I've been wanting.
I love that. Now, before we go any further, I do want to address the patch that you mentioned. So I'm just going through our review guide here. So the first patch will introduce a bunch of stability fixes, and it's going to be pushed prior to the embargo of us recording this. So this is prior to October 2nd. So that'll be a patch. That'll be like the first day one patch. And then there will be issues that will be addressed, post release of the game. So we are playing this. I'm not too sure of the version that we're playing, but we are playing before, I guess, the big day one patch that a lot of people will have. So this very much is in development stage for this review from what we are being told. But yeah, for me, I didn't run into too many technical issues, but again, I'll talk about the ones that I did. But Shay, sorry, I want you to follow up on that.
Yeah, no. So really quickly, all I wanted to say is I don't think we even said what we're playing on, but we're playing on the PS5, just so that there is some context on that. But go ahead, Daniel.
No, that's a great point. Yeah, we are all playing these on PS5s, on digital editions, which obviously because we got codes for the game. But yeah, we are all playing on PS5. Anthony, I would love for you to tell us your history with Assassin's Creed, because we're all coming from a bit of a different spot here. And then we go into it, and then we could. That was me stabbing your throats. And then let us know what you thought of the game.
Well, I guess my time with Assassin's Creed really started with this one. Truthfully, I think I'd spend the most time with this game than I have ever done with any of the other Assassin's Creeds. My first introduction to Assassin's Creed, like video game wise, was when I got my Xbox One, and it was a bundle of Unity and Black Flag, and I think another one might have been part of it. But that was kind of like my introduction. But it's also Assassin's Creed has established a fandom and like a cultural presence. Even if you haven't played the game, you probably heard of it, you've probably seen it, you know the characters wear the cloaks and you do this. So I was pretty well versed in what I'm supposed to do in this game. As an assassin, I'm going to kind of assassinate people. I understand that. So I think talking to you, Daniel and Shay, you guys were talking about Valhalla and how it was such a interesting game. It's a different take on Assassin's Creed. You were like these Vikings. So I kind of got a little bit excited going into this because I thought it was going to be a little bit different than what I've seen and what I've heard and what I've been aware of for the past 15 years of this franchise. And truthfully, I couldn't connect with this game. I really had a hard time finding my stride with it. Like, technically, the game works. Like, you put it on, you could do whatever you've done in Assassin's Creed over the past 10 years, and you can do that. But I feel like the gameplay and the evolution of this franchise really hasn't changed. Like, I remember playing about a month ago. I asked you guys, which Assassin's Creed should I play? And Shay, you said start with 2. So I started 2, and I think that was the Ezio start.
Yeah.
It was your relative.
Ezio Auditore.
Yes. Yeah, and I'm like, oh shit, this guy's Italian. I'm gonna be like, but it was so far removed. I was a little disconnected with the Italian part. But I found like even playing that game and playing this game, the mechanics are so similar. They're almost the same. The traversal of getting over the building, getting over the person, going here and going there, it never really felt evolved as much as like if I was to play Spider-Man, for instance. Like, I feel like I'm moving through the city. I don't ever feel like I'm moving through the city as Basim. I always feel like I'm getting stuck somewhere and getting sticky, or I can't climb this, or he's having trouble going here and going there.
He does feel like very magnetic. Yeah, he definitely feels very magnetic in this one, a little bit more than I felt, and it could just be the location, but it felt very like when I've played with Eivor in Valhalla or Cassandra or Bayek in Origins, they feel a little bit looser, where Basim feels like he's a little bit more magnetic to the surroundings. So sometimes I'll go to a wall and be like, no, I don't want to go there. I want to go here, and he'll be stuck to that.
Right. And that's kind of like the mechanics for me. I couldn't just get into it, and I couldn't get into the story as well, because I felt like I've heard the story many times, even though I haven't played all the Assassin's Creed. It's the same story of I am in a situation where I need to be strong for the people who are not. And that's the whole idea of Assassin's Creed. And then I felt like let's give us a different story with these characters. Let's give them more grounded. I felt that I lost track of what we were really fighting for at times. You know, the game is fun to kill people, and I know it's a funny thing to say, but it is fun to kill people in this game. And that's what this game's about. Like, no doubt about it. It's about an assassin. But I have fun. I did have fun killing people, but I just couldn't connect with it. I just couldn't. And I think it's the series for me. I just can't connect with the series. And I'm a big fan of stealth missions. I like Metal Gear is my biggest thing. When I'm playing a game, I usually would like to be in stealth, but I find it really hard to be in stealth with this dude because I always find that I get caught. I always find that I'm always in a situation where I can't get out of or I can't hide, even though I can jump in this haystack that's been the staple of Assassin's Creed for 100 years, but we haven't really evolutionized that portion of why don't we maybe think of something else, or sit with the people or kind of merge in with that. But yeah, that's kind of like my feeling with this version of Assassin's Creed. Like Mirage, it has good points, but I feel like it missed the boat with just connecting with new audience. Because I know, Shay, you said it's going back to the basics, but I don't know if that's a good thing. I feel like we need to evolve this or rethink about what Assassin's Creed is in 2023 and not go back to what it was 10 years ago.
I agree with what you're saying that, yes, going back to the basics doesn't always mean a good thing. But I think for someone like me who really fell off the franchise with how much they tried to change it, going back to the basics at least allowed me to kind of like step back into this world and play the game that I'm familiar with. You're absolutely right. This game is not breaking any new ground. There's no Assassin's Creed since 2007 is still Assassin's Creed today. Like the mechanics, the way the game plays, the bales of hay, the bales of flour, the synchronization, all that is very much the same, plus a few other extras that they kind of added through. But I guess it's just that familiarity that I love. But you're also right. Like if this continues forward, like if the next Assassin's Creed game that is in the Mirage kind of world where it's smaller is the exact same thing, will that keep me interested? Probably not. You are right. I am looking for something new. There are things in this game that I was like, okay, like it just kind of feels the same. But it still kind of made me happy playing through because I think I was just really invested in going back to the world. Maybe it was nostalgia that was doing it for me. Maybe it was something else. But you're right. There is that worry and that concern. I said curry instead. That worry and that concern of, is this sustainable? Is this something that you can really kind of keep going forward? And I think Ubisoft has put themselves in a really weird spot because they announced a lot of Assassin's Creed based content that was coming out, that is coming out. And you kind of wonder, like, are you took some time off, but now are you going to go back to saturating everything again? So we're in a weird spot with where Assassin's Creed is going to go forward. I wonder if there's a lot of just waiting to see how Mirage does, not only financially, but also critically, to see kind of where they kind of push forward. But again, video games do take a long time to make. So they're probably already deep in the other ones. There's a lot of questions that I'm sure we're going to keep talking about during this.
I find that Ubisoft is fine. Like it's very similar to like Square Enix, where they have a certain look, a certain mechanic. Like with Final Fantasy, you can play all the Final Fantasies and they feel very similar. They look very similar. And they never really push forward a different look as well as, and where Ubisoft has that same feeling where it has Assassin's Creed or Watchdog, the mechanics, the movement, the character designs, the controller layout, they all feel very similar from one game, from one franchise to another. It's all part of that world. And I feel like they're stuck there and they can't get out of it. Where if we take, for instance, Naughty Dog, it feels different from Uncharted to Last of Us or Insomniac, where it's like Spider-Man and Ratchet and Clank. They have different vibes, different feelings, different people working on different stories. Well, this Ubisoft feels like they all just working in one world, and this is the world they'll stay until they die. And I don't know if that's sustainable for them in the future.
So it's interesting because Assassin's Creed Mirage originally started as an expansion for Valhalla. So it was actually going to be a DLC expansion, and then they decided to spin it out into its own game. And I'm glad that they did, because I'm someone who I've played every Assassin's Creed game. I've beaten every Assassin's Creed game with the exception of Unity, because that game was infamously very buggy at launch, and I got soft locked into an area about 20 hours into that game, and I never went back to it because I was just frustrated. But I've beaten every other Assassin's Creed game I've put in, especially with the most recent trilogy of Origins and Odyssey and Valhalla, probably like over 100 hours in each game. And I had to, I guess, relearn or re-examine what Assassin's Creed was, right? Just like Ubisoft did when they were trying to reinvent the series with Origins and onward, because it became very much just like, we're doing the same thing, but in a different setting, in a different time. Their games will look beautiful. They'll have the best environments. I even think back to Unity, how amazing France looked in that game, or how amazing Paris looked in that game, still to this day is the best. And what I've loved with every Assassin's Creed has done really is that, I think is starting with Origins. Please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. They've done like these history modes where you could actually just tour the areas and you could just play it like a simulator and just kind of learn about these different locations. And I think Ubisoft has always been really good with representation and showcasing their diversity in, not just their developers, but also within the worlds, and respecting and showing love for the places that these games take place in. Now, Basim is a character who we were introduced to in Valhalla, and this is taking place about 10, 11 years before Assassin's Creed Valhalla does. So we see Basim as a lot younger man, learning what the Brotherhood is, learning what the Hidden Ones are. And then you kind of go on his journey, and like Anthony said, it's a very familiar tale. Like he's fighting for his area, his people, his family, his loved ones, and then he kind of gets thrust into this larger adventure. And I love that this feels like a return to form. This feels, for better and for worse, like a return back to what those earlier Assassin's Creed games were, where you were just playing stealth. You didn't have you have tools that you get, and I really like that they mapped the tools to like a weapon wheel. So you'll have 6 different tools that you could use. I believe it's six. I think it's 6. And you could use like a smoke bomb. You could use throwing knives. You have a torch, which I never used. Did you use a torch at all in this game
when you were exploring to fight
the areas?
Only the one.
No, part, not to fight, but like in a dark area.
Just
or
the
anything
one
like that. I never
part
felt like I
needed made me use it. Like it said, "Hey, use your torch here," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, sure, I'll try it out." That was it.
So
a lot of the tools I didn't
interesting.
use, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I used a lot of the smoke bomb. I used a lot of the throwing knives and the blow darts, like those ones, because I would try and take out enemies from afar. And then, of course, you have your trusted eagle, Iniku. Is it?
Yeah.
What's it? Iniku. Yeah. In this game, I'm so used to calling it Sinu from Origins, or oh god, I forget the one the Raven was called in Valhalla. But no, and here's the thing, because I'm so used to, for the last like 6 years of my life, I've been playing Assassin's Creed as these giant RPG games. Mirage feels very bare bones compared to it. And I don't just mean in the size of the map. I think Baghdad's beautiful, and it's a very digestible map where I could go from one end to the other and not feel like I need to fast travel. I can be like, no, you know what? I'm going to run there. I'm going to do some parkour there, or ride my horse there. But where you have the other games there, I feel like, especially in Odyssey, I feel like, okay, I feel like I could book a plane to this part of Greece and get there sooner before I could ride my horse there. But I feel like Mirage is a tale of two games for me, where I really loved how straightforward, how simple it was, but I also missed a lot of things like upgrading my weapons in a certain way, or always finding new weapons, or looting people to find armor parts and upgrading them that way and changing the appearances. Like there's little things like that. Those were quality of life things that I think Valhalla did so well, and that trilogy did so well. Where in Mirage now, if I want to change the look of a weapon, I have to go to a vendor in the city, and then I have to get there. And like it just feels like it's a little bit more taxing, and it's not as fun to do that. Where this used to be something I could do in the menu. Now you feel like you went a lot back in time to like the PS3 days to have to do something like that. Or it doesn't feel like once you've established that you could do something in the menu, to now have to go to a point on the map to do it feels very, very backwards. It feels like we're going way back in time. But I really love the traversal in this game. I think Basim, his character himself, is really interesting. I love that all of the stories in the game were connected to each other. It literally felt like, like in a detective movie where they have all of the pictures on the wall and you're connecting all the lines to, who's the head organization person. That's what this game is. And it makes you kind of feel like Batman when you're investigating areas. It was a little frustrating because of some of those points of interests that you were trying to get to and discover, you wouldn't always see. Even if you went into your eagle mode, you would just be like, okay, where is this last thing? Or it wouldn't show up. So sometimes I found that I had to reload my last checkpoint, or even close the game and reopen it again to have something trigger, or have a moments where I killed all these enemies or I freed these prisoners. I'd have to restart reload my save for it to actually see that, oh, I did this.
I had a really hard time with the eagle trying to pinpoint where in the map it wanted me to go. And I just would track it, and it would like find it, and it just wouldn't close. And I I found it a very, very, like, it was tedious. It became frustrating where I'm like, what do you want me to do with this eagle? And why can't you help me get to where I am? Or why can't I just get there? The things like that become obstacles in trying to get to the place you need to go to. And I found that A, the mechanic of that could have been a lot better. B, the eagle could have been the eagle could have used its eyes, and it didn't in that case.
Also, speaking of the eagle, this is something I was talking about to Shay about. I was so frustrated sometimes using Inaku because I would throw my eagle in to, scope out the area and mark enemies. But as soon as I'd go into an area, he would start getting like shot with arrows. And I'm like, how did these people know that specific eagle is
100%
a spy, is an assassin? I'm like, there's no way. Let me just scope it out. Like, if I get close, sure, yeah, they could attack it, but like I was so far away. So there was like little moments like that. I'm like, just no, let me just scope out. Let me get a sense of where I'm at. And it's interesting because I feel like, again, I'm going to be comparing a lot to the RPG trilogy, Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla, where I think the combat in those games, I got a lot more used to it, in the sense where it's like, okay, I have my weapons. I could have different weapons. I could have a spear and axe, whatever I want. Where in this game, you have your dagger and you have your sword, and then you have your hidden blade. But when you're fighting, you don't really feel a difference between the dagger or the sword. They just feel like these are your weapons. Yes, you could unlock different ones. They'll have different stats and things like that, but it's not super in depth. But what ended up happening, like Anthony's experience, I would go in, I would be as stealth as I could, and then I would eventually get seen. And I'd never really worry if I was seen, because there wasn't a lot of consequences to being seen other than tailing missions, which we'll talk about afterwards. But I never felt like I would get in trouble if I would be seen. I literally would just have all the guys come up to me and I would parry and then kill them. Parry, then kill them. I literally have a video, and we could probably throw this video up in the review right now, where I just have like 30 dead soldiers around me, because it's just the combat didn't feel too in depth. And we're in an era now where we have so many games coming out where their combat feels fluid, and I always want to go back to that feeling of like taking this person down and taking this person down and using these finishers, where we've had that in the RPG trilogy. But in this game, it feels a lot more basic, where I'm just fighting, slashing, parrying, killing them, and that's it. And it feels a little bit lighter, where it used to be a lot more in depth. So even though I know I'm having a lot of criticisms for this game, I really enjoyed Assassin's Creed Mirage. I think this is a game that, like, for people like Shay who fallen off from the series, will come back and be like, this is familiar. This is the Assassin's Creed that I know. It looks beautiful. I think the animations are beautiful, and exploring Baghdad is really exciting. I can't wait to go back, because I do want to try and platinum this game, because I was feeling fulfilled going location to location and taking somebody out and doing these missions, but there isn't a lot of depth to it. And I think that's where I was missing a lot more of what I've gone from the Assassin's Creed world in the last 6 years, where I've gone these experiences that have really made me feel like I got to play it my own way. Mirage makes you feel like you're going to play it Bossam's way. You're going to play it the way that Ubisoft kind of wants you to play it, which is great. But for people who have been conditioned to be able to approach things however they want to be, they may be left a little bit disappointed, feeling that, hey, you know what? I feel like I was a little bit forced down this path when I wanted to, take my own route there. So that's kind of where I'm at with it right now.
I think and that's a great point that you bring up, that yes, you are definitely there's an open world, but it's still very linear, right? I mean, you look at the RPG trilogy, where it's like, it's an open world. It's an open world. Like, you have unlimited possibilities.
Go wherever you want.
Go wherever you want, do whatever you want. And you probably won't even touch the main narrative for quite a while. Again, I was grateful that it was a smaller game, because we have a lot of games right now that we're kind of in at the moment. So
yeah, 20 hours.
20 hours.
To
and I think,
game.
We all completed it within, I think, 17 really. And that's not including the bonus content that isn't available to us yet. And there's a bunch of side missions, but within the main storyline, I think we kind of got it done around that time. And that was perfect for me. That was like enough. I was like, okay, I'm in, I got it. Because as much as I love the Assassin's Creed franchise, I don't stay in it long enough. And like when I did that with Odyssey, I was having such a great time. But then when I realized, I'm like, oh my God, I've put in this many hours and I'm not even close to finishing the game, I immediately just felt like, oh, like, I don't know if I want to continue anymore, and I just stopped. I was just bummed out that I didn't finish it. But
It's
at the
very
same time,
overwhelming.
It was very overwhelming. Exactly it. This again, it's just bite size. It's palatable. This game is going to be available on the iPhone 15 Pro. So if you have one of those, really curious like how that's going to work and play out. I mean, that's very
the
cool.
same? Is this the same
game?
Same game. Like I remember watching reviews and talking about how the 15 Pro is just going to utilize the same graphics as what we're going to get in these systems now.
USB-C port, plug it in. You've got your own mini console on the go.
I would 100%. I would 100%. If there's a way to do a cross save,
I think Ubisoft has that, right? With their Connect Plus.
I believe so. So like, if there's a way to do it, I would 100% go in and play on my phone and tackle the game there, because this is a game that I still want to go back. Like I was saying, I want to go back and trying to 100% it because it feels achievable. It feels attainable. It doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like I've every time I've played an Assassin's Creed game, I'm like, maybe this is the one. And the closest I've gone to 100%ing them, or I did 100% Assassin's Creed 2, collecting all those feathers, doing all of that, because it felt like even though I was in that game world for a long time, it was still palatable. Where I'm like, you know what, I could do this. Where Valhalla, I'm like, okay, I don't have 300 hours to go snooping around and finding all of this stuff and going place to place to place. It's a lot to do.
And we can't see all the trophies, just so everyone's aware. We can't see them all.
We cannot.
But we know roughly how many achievements and trophies we've gotten. So
so I think I've about 60% trophy wise.
Nice.
So like I know the trophies will go online on the 2nd. So by the time you're listening to this, the trophy list is out already. So just be mindful of spoilers. We're not talking any spoilers here, but it is something I'm like, you know what? Like, this seems like it could be achievable. Like, and I like this game world enough. And I think with the patches coming, I think it's only going to improve a lot of the stuff as it has before with the Assassin's Creed games, where patches have fixed a lot. But I think just as the story wise, I really enjoyed the story. It was simple. It was straightforward. It feels very, each kind of branch of like this web that you're doing feels like its own little mini story, and then it kind of builds up to whoever you have to assassinate, and then that will kind of draw a line closer to figuring out who the head of this order is. So each kind of moment felt like a little mini episode of like a series where you're kind of building out, like establishing kind of this world around you before you get to the big main bad, and then full Assassin's Creed mode kind of goes from there. But
I just want to give a shout out to voice actress and actress, and I'm going to try to pronounce her name because it's a very unique name, Shohreh Aghdashloo, who, if you've watched 24, you know who she is. If you've watched quite a bit of her films, you know who she is. She has such a unique voice, and it was nice to see her, because I haven't seen her in a lot of things in a while. So being able to see her as I guess, can we say she was an assassin in this storyline? Like,
she was in the trailer. She was in Valhalla.
So
and she was in Valhalla as well. Yeah.
She's just a super unique voice. Like, her voice is so distinguishable. Like, I know that voice. I know her. She's Dina from 24. So, but yeah. That's it.
Yeah, she's fantastic. It's again, the voice acting in this game is phenomenal. Like, every single person I thought just brought some great complexity to the characters, which is something that I sometimes feel like Ubisoft games are kind of missing. There's a cheesiness to the dialogue that I feel like is the Ubisoft way, and for a lot of people, it absolutely works because clearly they're still making games, so people like it. But for me, this one, it finally felt like, okay, there's a bit more seriousness to the tone that I kind of prefer. So yeah, I really dug that.
Yeah, and I think when you look at like the lineage of Assassin's Creed, like, I feel like Assassin's Creed has been that that crown jewel for Ubisoft over the last 15 plus years. So they've been able to bring some great performances throughout all of them. Luckily, there's been the majority of the assassins in the series I've been really big fans of. With the exception of Shay, but that's just for personal reasons. But it's really good, and I think oh god, Shay, I just saw Shay's face. But I think Bassam is a great assassin. I love that we got to learn a lot more about him, because you know about him in Valhalla, but to really know where he comes from and what he's fighting for, I think brings a lot to it, and it's just nice to be. It's nice and it's a little refreshing to not have that weight of a bunch of marks of your map having a bunch of things that are pulling you away from what matters most, and that's the storytelling, it's the characters, and it's the gameplay. And I think Assassin's Creed Mirage goes back to what made those first games feel so solid and feel so great, and it really kind of brings that into this new era. So it's a really interesting mesh. Let's get into our final recommendations for Assassin's Creed Mirage. Shabazz, I'm going to get you to start us off, brother.
A lot of the criticisms are very, very fair points, and especially the ones, Anthony, that you brought up. Is this how I want the franchise to continue forward? I don't think so. I don't know. I do want something new. That now that I got that welcome back, that piece of nostalgia, that ode to the first couple of games, I'm like, okay, perfect. Do I want this to continue going forward? I don't know. I want something a little bit fresher, a little bit newer, that really enhances the combat, that enhances all the things that really we've wanted. Takes a blend of both the old and the new versions of Assassin's Creed and kind of pushes them forward. When it comes to Assassin's Creed Mirage, though, I love what this game has done. I love the joy that it got me, and I love the representation that it brought. Walking through the streets of Baghdad while the Adhan was playing in the background was so cool. It just felt like I was witnessing my ancestors, probably. I don't know. I mean, obviously I'm not Iraqi, but yes, it was still just very, very cool to kind of see that world happen there. And I loved the characters. I loved where it was going. I loved the gameplay. Bugs despite that could have happened. I mean, granted, when I finish this game with the platinum trophy down the road, I'm really curious to see how it goes, and I'm sure we'll discuss it at that point as well. But for now, I will say play it. It's great. If you love the Assassin's Creed franchise, if you've loved the last RPG games, maybe this, like Daniel was saying, it might feel a little bit too bare bones for you, but it might just be a nice little palate cleanser for the next game that's coming out, and I really hope people have a good time with it.
Yeah, Shay, I'm right there with you. This is a play for me. I had a really great time with it. Aside from the little issues that I had that we've spoken about for the last 40 minutes, there's a lot to love here. I think, first and foremost, it's the character Basim. I think it's the world that we're in. Just feels like a lived-in world. It feels like a world that I want to continue exploring. It feels very Prince of Persia, which obviously, Assassin's Creed was birthed from being a Prince of Persia game. And it's funny because we had the
that's the only suit and dagger and stuff I used, by the way. This game was literally Prince of Persia for me.
The Prince of Persia suit.
Jake Gyllenhaal
does not have a skin in this game, so but we'll ask Ubisoft about that. But no, I had a great time with it. I think there's a lot to love here. Yes, it's a little bit more of a toned down experience from the larger RPG games that we've had over the last 6 or 7 years. But this is at its core an Assassin's Creed game. This is what makes Assassin's Creed great. And I think this is something that if you've fallen off the series and you want to jump into it and not have, those little and have a beautiful HD 4K experience, I think Assassin's Creed Mirage is the way to go. I think you're going to have a great time with the story and just want to explore and learn more and just, get lost in this world, because it really is a world that you get lost in. It's absolutely beautiful. And I'm really excited to see where Ubisoft decides to take the series going forward. I know we know there's a Japan one coming. There's other ones coming, larger games. We'll see what method they kind of go with. But for me, I do miss a lot of what made those RPG games great. The variation of weapons, the variation of crafting and armor and fighting. But this is through and through a classic Assassin's Creed experience. And for that, made me happy. Anthony, take us on home.
I kind of expressed how I felt in the early part of this review, but I just couldn't connect with this game. And as someone who's new to the franchise and hasn't really played any of the other games, this game didn't really want me to be part of that franchise and really continue playing more Assassin's Creed. So, this is just my opinion. It didn't connect with me. It didn't speak with me. I think it's a skip it. But if you're a huge fan of it and you really want to try it out, go ahead, buy it, try it out, or maybe wait for it to be on PlayStation Extra. Is it Extra now, or what's the subscription service which connects you
Extra?
to
There's Premium, and then obviously on the Xbox side there's
Ubisoft
Game Pass
Plus
as well,
or whatever it's called. That
yeah, so there's Ubisoft Plus, but I think if you sign up for one of the subscription services, Ubisoft Plus is part of it. So maybe wait for that as well. But I'm looking forward to the day where the Assassin's Creed kind of changes and gives a different approach to being an assassin than what we've been getting for the past 10 to 15 years. I don't even know. I keep saying 15 years. I don't even know if this franchise is 15 years old.
This is literally the 15th anniversary. It starts the game.
Oh, okay,
cool. It is, yeah.
So I'm just lucky.
But
on
I'm
that
curious,
number.
Anthony. Though, like I'm curious, like if you like next time you're over, like you should try Valhalla to see if it speaks to you a little bit differently, because it's also very different from this game. So
yeah,
I'm curious to see how.
And I remember watching you play, and I'm like, oh, this feels so different. It feels more open world. It just didn't feel like you're in a closed section. And it's nothing.
I'd ride a wolf.
Nothing against Baghdad. Like Baghdad looks great and all. It looks fantastic, but it just felt like I didn't have a lot of places to go in that city. And maybe that's just the architecture of that time, right? Like it is the birth of civilization, right? Isn't that Baghdad was the cradle of civilization for our world? I believe that's a thing.
I'll take your word for it, dude.
This is the minute with
it was a cradle of life.
The Wikipedia article.
One minute of history with Anthony, but no, I believe that's a big part of Baghdad and why and what it is now. But
I love that.
Other than that, like I think there is a potential there. I just feel like I couldn't connect with it. I couldn't be with it, and because of that, I have to say it's a skip it.
No, it's no problem. I will really say quickly too, something we were talking about before. There's a setting in the game where you could turn on a filter where it gives it like a blue tint to make it look like the first Assassin's Creed game, which was famously very, very blue. So if you're someone who wants to relive that Assassin's Creed OG experience, that option is there. I turned it on for like a minute and I was like, nope, this game's too beautiful to have a blue tint all over it. But just funny that's there. But please, if you're playing Assassin's Creed Mirage, let us know. Join our Discord. We're going to have a room open where you can talk all about Assassin's Creed. We'd love to know your history with the series because, like Shay said, it is celebrating 15 years this year, which is absolutely wild to think. I want to say thank you to our friends at Ubisoft for providing us with codes for the game. This game will be releasing on October 5th on so many platforms. You're going to be able to play this on your Xbox One, on your Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, PC, Luna, and then later next year, it will be available to play on your iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max, which is just obscene to think about. But we look forward to testing it out there to see how it runs, see how it plays. So lots to look forward to. Stay tuned for our just thoughts on that on a future episode of the Movie Podcast. Make sure you're following us on all social media platforms on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Letterboxd at the Movie Podcast. Like I said, join our Discord. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe, leave a comment below, and follow us on whatever podcast feed of your choice. That was this time with the Movie Podcast, and we'll see you next.